Welcome to 3, a show about Federer, Nadal, and Djokovic, and part of the Tennis Channel Podcast Network. I'm Gill with Joel Drucker and Amy Lundy. We are getting together for a discussion sooner than expected. I guess we probably expected Friday for an Alcaraz showdown, but Novak Djokovic has lost in round 2 to Alejandro Davidovich Fokina, the very talented 22-year-old with a lot of exciting skills. But of course, Djokovic falling in 3 sets, 6-1 in the third set was far from his best. Joel, if we're calling a spade here, he didn't look like he was in shape, really, by his standards in this match. And he was out of gas by the end.
Well, right. So there's the fitness in the end. You see that third set. I mean, he rallies strongly, impressively to win that second set tiebreak. But the 30 had nothing. And even throughout the match, you could see the fitness plays off, and you see some of the shots lacking depth, the kind of the execution. You see a player like this play so well for so long, you get used to seeing him make things. It's like a basketball player making certain shots, or a tennis player, and he's just the accuracy, the depth, the force, just not quite there. And he kind of Houdini'd his way through the second set to get into a third, but yeah, not enough.
You guys were right. I was wrong. I've seen him working out. I mean, he's thin, as he always is. So I just figured, he's in typical Novak shape. But you said something about VO Max, Gill.
Yeah,
he didn't have the VO Max today. But interestingly, ADF, as I call him, did beat Novak in 0-4. I mean, it was really close, but so it was actually, even on the short points, he wasn't himself. And I didn't think that his serve, and of course anyone's serve is going to be mitigated on clay. And he hit some good, he topped out at some good speeds. I think 126 mph was his top out, but his average was a little down. It was around 110. And he did not win his usual high percentage of first serves. ADF got him in that category. And ADF, Novak first serve in percentage was a little off. He was at 61%, and he typically does around 65. So I just didn't think the serve was effective. And of course, everybody likes to play drop shots on clay, including Novak, and he didn't have the touch. I mean, he was either floating them or he missed a few. So that, I think, is going to be a matter of rhythm. But other than that, he's injury free, and I'm not too worried. Are you guys?
No, I'm not thinking it. I mean, I'm not thinking about this as like cast a shadow. I'd be a little more concerned if this happened in 3 straight play events, including Rome, and he played 3 matches. But it is interesting. We had this fun talk the other day about whether it's better to come back on hard, come back on clay, and so on. So he's been hard courted, as he was by Vesely, by the guy who could hit big and hit him off the hard court. And today he was kind of clay courted. I mean, by someone who could get a lot of balls in play and run things down and take advantage of his. I mean, this shows clay is a good surface to get it back, but you need to play more matches. And this is kind of the tennis conundrum. You don't get more chances. Now we can't play another competitive match for at least a week.
Well, on a quick surface, maybe if Novak's serve was firing and he could come forward, maybe he could shorten the points. On clay against someone with the speed of Davidovich Fokina, you're not going to shorten points. It's just not going to happen. And he said that after the match, and he couldn't. But in terms of the long-term concern, I think we have to remember what happened last year. He was outlasted and out rally toleranced by Dan Evans at this event. And then he went and he won Roland-Garros. It's becoming a very strong pattern that Novak isn't in great shape at this time of year. And he's missed Indian Wells in Miami now 2 years in a row, pandemic stuff. And then this year, vaccine stuff, one and the same almost. But even before then, he was having difficult sunshine doubles. I feel like it's this big kind of Australian Open hurrah peak. And then it's kind of post-Australia vacation. he comes back this time of year, and he just recently, this second chapter, post 2016, hasn't been good this time of year. But it's not, he's always fine by RG, is basically the common pattern.
Well, right. And that's these great players who know how to, I mean, not that they know how, they know how to navigate through this time and not feel panicked. I mean, nothing, I watched this press conference, there was no sense of any kind of panic or anything. It's like, yep, this was a day at the office. This was a better opponent. This I didn't do well. I felt hanging on the ropes the whole time. And he's just going to kind of carry on through his clay season. And the thing is, of all the slam buildups, the one with the longest cycle is the clay season.
I not to be a contrarian, but when we say he hasn't been good during clay season, I mean, he's won clay titles.
I'm not saying clay season.
Rome.
I'm saying Rome. But I'm not saying Rome. I'm saying Sunshine Double, Monte Carlo.
Oh, okay.
So I'm talking about March. I'm talking about March, beginning of April. Once you hit the end of April, I mean, Novak's been incredible in Rome. He's been good in Madrid. It's just March, beginning of April.
But hasn't he won the Sunshine Double?
Yeah, but not since 2016. Since 2016, not only has he not won, we talk about all the time with our three, we're in kind of a crazy expectations, and we say, oh, they've only won it so and so times. With Novak, he hasn't even been in a semifinal since 2016 of Indian Wells, Miami, or Monte Carlo. It's not a case of he's just lost a couple of finals or something like that. He legitimately has not been good at these events, with the caveat that he's missed these events a couple of times, and in the last 2 years hasn't played the Sunshine Double.
Yeah, I just don't know if it's that important to him. I mean, even by his own admission now, it's really, he centers things around the Grand Slams.
That's just the point.
I just, I want to, you know, to my eye, watching the match and then going over the rally stats at the end, I do think that it was 0-4. The majority of the match was played, believe it or not, in 0-4, as most matches are. And Davidovich Fokina won in that category. He got him on the short points. So it's weird to me that Novak was saying he was trying to shorten the points, because if that's what he said in press, because that's not something
he didn't say that. He didn't say that. He said he couldn't shorten the points. Like it wasn't going to happen. But also the majority was the majority of rallies were more than 4 shots, though. It was 5+. The longest subset was 0-4. But if you combine 5 and 8 and 9+, that was more.
Okay.
But also if you look at the third set, and I looked through these too, and yes, ADF 1-0-4. The third set, 9+ rallies, 9-2 for Fokina. So that was where Novak's legs started to go on him, but Novak actually won that in the second set.
Okay.
Right.
Which was a long set that was in a tie break. Yeah. So that was what he had. He didn't have anything in the third set, which makes sense. He hasn't been playing. So this was a tough one. This was a tough opponent, and I thought it would be easy for him, but without the serve, you know, without the free points on serve, and really not putting the first serves in at the percentage that he typically does, and certainly not winning the percentages of first serves, then it's going to be a long day at the office.
I also think that clay, this gets to the ongoing dialogue we have about clay and hard. Clay is the service that's going to least reward you if you win the second set and try to then build momentum, because you still have clay. In other words, you will if your opponent is gassed. Then you will. I lost the first set. I won the second set. He's tired. Here I go. Like Rafa, like we've seen Rafa. But if that's not the case, because you saw Novak on a clay court, he wins the second set, but he's still looking at, okay, I got to play a third set on clay against a guy who's pretty fast and pretty fit. So it's not like he gets this momentum wave the way you might on a hard court. It's like, I won the second set. He's demoralized. I'm going to shorten points now. You know, the clay, I mean, clay still does not, it's such a unique surface. So incredible, the challenges it poses for a competitor.
What about the wind? It was very windy. We recently talked about Nadal and the wind at Indian Wells. Alcaraz won that incredible second set, but it's been a theme where, we talk about Nadal as being someone who maybe doesn't play better in the wind, but plays less worse than his opponent. Whereas Novak has had issues in the wind. Why do we think that is? And maybe how did that play out in this match?
I'm stunned. Go on, Amy.
Did he seem bothered by the wind?
In the first set, I thought he looked pretty bothered.
Okay. I mean, it's the way it is at that club. The club is literally on a cliffside right by the ocean. It's springtime. It's going to be windy. So it's interesting that he would be bothered by it, but maybe he was just generally uncomfortable. And so things like that would exacerbate his discomfort. But yeah, I mean, he's a guy who likes the conditions to be pretty, not a factor in the match and fairly even and equalized. But, sometimes when he's just letting off steam like that, it's just, it's his way of working through things. I mean, we've also seen him excel in all different types of conditions.
When you asked the question, Gill, I was going to think, yeah, that's my question. I wanted to ask you guys why he thought he wasn't as good in the wind. And then, Amy was, I like those thoughts. It's about Novak and today. Stylistically, if I was going to show someone how to play in the wind, you think Novak, footwork, margin, depth. But then I thought of something else for Novak in particular, which is he's like a lot of contemporary pros. He likes to have things all orderly and control. I mean, we've read and learned so much about his diet, about what he eats and what he drinks and when he stretches. And the wind is this other element that things are a little out of control. But I still think that's obviously so attitudinal for him. I just wrote an article about playing in the wind. I would just think, Novak, you've got all the right things that make for being a great wind player. I don't know. Why do you think, Gill, he doesn't like wind?
I think it has to do with his stroke production, actually. And I can't, explain this as well as I'm sure a lot of many coaches who have a better kind of technical eye than me can. But I feel like in his preparation and the way he likes to stay on balance and the way he likes to position his feet, I think when the ball moves on him late, he has trouble fighting it off sometimes. And I think Novak has exceptional footwork, but maybe when the ball moves on him, his feet don't cope with it as well as some other players' feet might cope with it.
I think it's a nice little homework assignment that I'm going to take on and talk to some coaches, because when I think I'll tell you someone who's great in the wind, who reminded me somewhat of Novak, but not nearly as forceful as Leighton Hewitt. Leighton Hewitt loved playing in the wind. And he thrived in it. And so he had strokes that would, not exactly like Novak, but somewhat in that vein of a fairly compact and the two-hander but it's interesting. And so that could be it too. I think that's an interesting thing to understand, because again, I think he has precisely the things you want for wind, the balance and the footwork and the discipline. I mean, he's not Nadal in a different way. Nadal with the top spin and Nadal's kind of warrior mentality. I like what you said, Gill. He plays less bad because he's Nadal. He's something, right?
When you look at that, Joel, look and see if his winning percentages in windy conditions are really all that bad. Because just like Rafa complaining about the different brands of ball, and then we went back and looked at it and realized that he wins even with the balls that he's complaining about. It could be that Novak does really well in the wind, but that doesn't mean he likes it.
Well, that's a great point. I'm sure, that would be a tough one to find, to dig through windy matches and see how he's fared in them. And I'm sure you're right. I'm sure exactly like with the ball. But the question is what his attitude about it is.
Yeah.
And he's had a few, remember that semi in Roland-Garros a couple of years ago with team where that was gale. That was windier than the Indian Wells Alcaraz Nadal match.
It was? That was windier?
The Roland-Garros one, I think, was windier.
The one with Federer and Nadal at Roland-Garros, I do remember how windy that one was. Do you remember that one, Joel? Was that as windy as the Alcaraz Nadal
That was
one?
windier, I think. See, and also The Indian Wells one, it got windy enough that the sand was coming from outside the ground. But when it's super windy on clay, the court itself is the
Yeah.
sandstorm. And so you
Yeah.
got the surface is betraying you and your eyes. And I think, I don't know if it's still the case, Novak at one point was wearing contacts. So that's a factor. I don't know if I used to wear contacts, and contacts in the wind, that's a problem too. So maybe we're slowly decoding this.
Maybe, you know, that dynamic where Novak has the best balance I've ever seen, but when he's off balanced, he's way off balanced.
Right. Yeah.
It's kind of like that for me. I feel like when things are thrown off and the wind throws everyone off, it doesn't matter. It's just, how do you almost fend off that kind of bad contact point, maybe poor timing, these things where generally Novak would never have to deal with, but because of the wind he does. And the result, I think, is not as good as some other players, maybe, who can have a poor contact point and still manage to kind of hit a decent shot, regardless of that. So again, I mean, that's just kind of, that's my eye. I try to stay away from the technical stuff to that, on that granular level. But I do think the forehand in the first set here was an absolute mess. And I thought it looked like the wind was a big part of that.
One other part on this wind thing, Nadal and Djokovic, both very ordered off the court, as a lot of professionals are. And Nadal, it's almost like people almost talking with the water bottles and all the kind of rough rituals. And Novak has his whole disciplines off the court. In the point, Novak is also remains his discipline because of the way he plays. Nadal, once the point gets underway, it's like, it's all sorts of things are happening when Nadal plays points. And I think that's part of what makes him engaging to people who don't even know tennis. It's like, wow, what is going on here? All this running and movement. But Novak's so controlled during the points, and then the wind forces you to be a little more, you got to go a little more jazz improv, like you said, about this balance and contact points. So I don't know. We'll see. I hope, though, for the quality of the tennis, it's not too windy in this clay court season.
Well, it definitely won't. Madrid's basically an indoor court, right? I mean, that it's outdoors, but it doesn't play like it's outdoors. I don't think Rome's very windy generally.
No, but
It could happen, but yeah. Let's talk quickly about Davidovich Fokina as a player. I mean, we've mentioned him, but we haven't really addressed him directly. Joel, what are your thoughts on the Spaniard? 22 years old, lots going on there.
Yeah, he's kind of interesting. I mean, he's kind of here and he's kind of there, and he moves well and he hits some shots well. But he's like a classic, like one of these Tuesday, Wednesday guys I've seen in early rounds of tournaments. He's good, but I don't know. He's kind of cut from his own mold because of some of the shots he has. It's not exactly like in the Carreno Busta or RBA. I don't know. He's kind of improvisational.
His body type kind of reminds me of Alcaraz a little bit. He's got the musculature and all that. I just thought that he handled the absorption and the redirection and those factors from the baseline better than Novak did. But I also thought that he handled the transition game a lot better, getting from the back court to the front court. And then, once he got up there, not floating things or not just, placing the ball, actually going up there with a plan. So he played a brilliant match. And for fans, it's just going to be unfortunate that we'll have to wait a while to get that Alcaraz-Djokovic matchup.
Yeah, that's for sure. ADF reminds me of Monfils a lot. I don't think he really knows what shot he should play ever. I think he just plays whatever feels right. His shot selection is wildly unpredictable, but the reason it works, or can work to a certain extent, is because he's really talented. He's an exceptional athlete. His speed was unbelievable. He's got a lot of power when he decides to use it, but I don't know that he, and he kept it together in this match, which he can definitely really mentally go insane sometimes. But yeah, it's really just going to be about, I think he could be a great player if he figures out, this is how I like to construct points, and this is when I should play safe cross court, and this is when I should attack. But I think for the most part, when it comes to this match specifically, his speed is pretty special. And with Novak not at his best, I thought that was the number one thing that was bothering Djokovic, was how well he was covering the court.
But then
it reminds me of Ange Jabeur, who is also a tremendous athlete. I don't know if she's that fast, but she never seems to have a plan.
Yeah.
I mean, if there's a plan, I cannot figure it out.
No. I think she has plenty of plans. That's her deal. She has plenty of plans. And I think I get her deal. I think her deal is somewhat more, I wouldn't say linear, but somewhat more orchestrated. She's just got a broad band of plays. Fokina, I like them on feast comparison. And I also think, so now you're Novak. Haven't played in a while, a little windy, clay court, and now you're playing someone who's irrational in their shot selection. And so that reminds me of some people there's someone I used to play, and he would try these shots, and I said, you're either a genius or an idiot. So it's almost disturbing to play someone who's like, why aren't you following the rules of shot selection? It's like you can see almost Novak thinking, where's Thomas Burdick and David Goffin when I need them? These are the guys I want to play. Win or lose, I know I'm going to gain sort of an accurate measure. I mean, but this is driving through a whole other neighborhood. And what's going on here? And what do you mean? No U-turns here? I mean, it's just strange.
We've all played players like that, where it's like, would you keep the ball cross court when you're supposed to?
Yeah.
Why are you doing that? Yeah.
Right.
It can be frustrating. It can be very, it can shake you out of your rhythm. And maybe that was not the ideal opponent for Novak to draw first out of the gate.
No, he wants like a Nishikori or even an RBA who's a rough customer, but at least a linear kind of customer, right? Something I know what this is going to be. This is going to be out execution. This is going to be out somebody kind of hauling off these shots that you're not supposed to hit and making them.
Yeah, Joel, you were spot on to lead with he's no RBA and PCB. ADF is from the country of shot selection. I mean, it is the national shot selection capital of the world, and he has rebelled completely.
You mean the country of like disciplined, smart shot select? I mean, yeah, nobody does better, right?
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
I love that.
Yeah.
That's right.
Okay, Belgrade. I do feel like there's a bit more riding on this than usual, because while I think there's plenty of time for Novak to get in shape and get ready for Roland-Garros. And, it's not at all the end of the world that he lost early here. At a certain point, first of all, he's going to need some matches. And he's also going to need some confidence, which he didn't get from the hard court season, which he usually already has from that. Is that fair?
Totally fair. He's lacking a lot of matches. How many matches has he played now this year? Right? Four. So that's about 25 less than usual. And instead of coming to Belgrade as the the native son who's great and maybe got to the quarters or semis or whatever in Monte Carlo, now he's a little undermatched. And I think he'd like to play. He'd like to get at least 3 matches in there, don't you think?
Yeah, especially it being at his home, crowd and all that. I'm not worried though. And in fact, I think maybe taking the first part of the year off will have, or not playing so much, will have a preserving effect by the time, like you said, Gill, by the time Roland-Garros rolls around and everybody else is like, dead. Rublev and has played every clay court, and Zverev has played all he can, and Novak may end up in a tortoise and the hare situation. So I know someone commented on the YouTube comments that I'm always sunshine and rainbows, and I see the positive, but I really do, and I think he'll go to Belgrade and do well and start to find his rhythm.
I agree. And even if he doesn't do well in Belgrade, I think it would probably have to be Madrid until I could really be at all worried about Roland-Garros for Novak, for his sake. So let's see what happens. Belgrade next week. Probably a Nadal injury update coming at some point. We don't have it right now. That'll do it for this episode of 3. Remember, we're available on all podcast platforms. We appreciate it if you leave a rating and a review on Apple and Spotify. And if you're watching on YouTube, like, comment, and subscribe. We'll see you next time on the next episode of 3.